evening, everyone. Jeremy didn't know what was going on in the first page, but I've done it for every year since I've been here because showing the art of the students the same way that we just show the great athletes is very important. Showing the art means and reminds us why we're here and why we have this budget. The budget is for the kids and for their education. So here we have a grade 6, Sofia Gonzalez. As you can imagine, I would never in any of my dreams would be able to draw anything like this. So that way I feel. So if we go to the next page, please, the background, that's also from a grade 6. And I want to start with the background. The good news is that during the 21-22 school year, we ended up with a total of fund balance of over $24 million. This is way over what the state allows us to have. But we need to be fiscally responsible, and we're saving money because we have only another 5 years of cessation fund, and we're going to need to use these funds very strategically and very smartly, because if not, we're going to have problems down the road because of Indian Point. On the other hand, unfortunately, this year we had several unanticipated expenditures. We had 5 additional teachers at the cost of around $450,000, 17 additional teaching assistants at the cost of around $800,000. Then we had increase in utilities, as you can see in your own houses. NIPA is going up, oil is going up, gas and diesel are going up. Fortunately, they are starting to balance or starting to go down a little bit. We also had some increase in administrative cost of around $83,000, and that's on the building principal's accounts. Additional transportation cost for the monitors in buses that I'm expecting, if we get the monitors, to be around $100,000. I'm $3,000 off from the presentation that Liz just did, but it's approximately $100,000. Next. So I want to give a background on Indian Point. Like I mentioned last year, there were 2 pilots because Indian Point had 2 nuclear generating facilities. One shut down in April 2020, the other one in 21. And then in 21, at one point, Energy sold or transferred Indian Point assets to Holtec for the commissioning of the site. We had an agreement with Holtec where we get $4 million for the 2022-23 pilot school years, and then we can add an agreement for the next year. However, if there's no agreement, then what will happen is that we will move, Holtec will move the property taxes to the roads. And the problem there is very simple for both them and us. For them is that very likely the valuation of the assessed value will be very high, and then they will go to file a tax resource, and then I need to use that money. If I lose a tax resource, then I have to make it up. So, at least from my standpoint, I like to know how much money, because we're talking very big money, I'm going to get the following year or the next year from a pilot, rather than from an assessment value that one day can be $12 million, but I lose in the tax resource hearings, and it can go down to 6, and now I have to pay $6 million from every year that they were paid well. So it's beneficial, I think, for both of us, but we're still negotiating. Next. So, as you can see here, pilot payments have decreased around 76%. However, the cessation fund payments have made up some of this money. For the 2023-24 year to the 2028-29, I'm assuming that Holtec will pay the same amount as 2022-2023, that was $4 million. So here you can see how the cessation fund helps, but at one point it goes from about $4-6 million to nothing. And then it's the taxpayers on their own. On this graph, you can see how our reserves have been growing, to cover the shortfall of the pilot. If you see the horizontal line is the maximum that we would be allowed to have in fund balance by law, by SED. As you can see, we're way above that number. Also on the governmental funds, total fund balance, they've been growing over the last several years, and all this is to make up for the payments that we lose from the pilot. Next one. Here you can see the revenues over time by type of sources. So as you can see, in 17-18, the biggest one was tax levy, and then that's going to increase substantially, while pilots will decrease substantially. So you can see there how one goes up and the other ones go down. And if you go to the next slide, you can see there exactly how it looks. You can see tax levy going up substantially and pilots going down, going the other direction. So here you can see the delta from one year to the other one of the revenues by source. Next. So why don't we start with the preliminary budget? And we are going to start with revenues and fund balance. So our revenue projection is a proposed tax levy of around $51.5 million. Our state aid that is increasing substantially of $12 million. Then we have other parts like cessation fund that it's going to be 12 million, pilot 6 million, and the rest parts of, for example, other income that is increasing substantially for two reasons mainly. Reason number one is because interest income is going to go up substantially. Last year, bank was paying us about 20 basis points, and we have in average, I'll say about $5 to $6 million a day in average cash balances in the bank. So, and this year we're getting about 1.5% interest. So we're going to jump from $30,000, $40,000 to $700,000, $800,000. So it's a big jump. So here are the revenue assumptions. State aid increases by $4.1 million, and this is mainly because of our decreasing wealth ratio. What I just mentioned, increasing other income, also increasing tuition from outside students, and that will depend if Lisa can take more students or not, but even if she can, usually we increase the tuition about 2 to 3% per year. I'm taking into account additional sales tax of approximately 150,000. This might be a little bit too aggressive because obviously if we go into a recession, that might go the other direction. Applied fund balance, like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I want to have tax levy increase over the next 10 years between 3 and 4%. And the way that I can manage that 3 to 4% is by either the years that we get more money from some other sources, reduce the fund balance, and in the years that we get less, increase the fund balance. So that's why this year we're getting a lot more, $4 million more in state aid. Therefore, I can reduce the fund balance to $1.8 million. The pilots will increase a little bit to $6.4 million. I just want to remind everyone that we have more than the energy pilot or the Holtec pilot today. We have also the Bresco pilot, so those pilots increase every year by a couple of percentage points. So that's why I'm saying that pilots will increase slightly, even if I take into account that Holtec will pay us the same amount as last year. The cessation fund payment will go down by $2 million because if you remember, every year it reduces by 10% of the difference. So the first year they pay us 80%, the second year 70%, and so on and so forth. Now we can go to expenditures. Our goal is to maintain all academic and support programs with 3 grade level in elementary schools. Again, the budget that we constructed is based on the Princeton book. So if then we decide to switch it, then we would have to switch, reduce and increase like we discussed in the past 2 hours. We definitely will maintain pre-K. We need to add 1 additional special education teacher. We will have no recurring COVID expenditures. Again, due to the fact that there are increases in salaries, we expect approximately an increase in the teacher retirement system of $250,000, an increase in Social Security of $118,000, and the big one is an increase in health insurance expenditure by $800,000, or 6% of premium. On the other hand, we're having a reduction of around $80,000 in workers' comp. The good news about workers' comp is that we're in a consortium with all our Putnam, Northern Westchester, BOCES school districts. And our workers' comp fund is highly overfunded. So last year, we decided to give a dividend to all the schools, totaling $2 million. We didn't use any. And this year, we decided to give an additional $2 million. Our proportional part is, if I'm not mistaken, around $120,000. But we didn't use it last year, and this year I'm using only about $78,000 in reduction. And then I'm taking into account additional bus runs to alleviate overcrowding and shorter routes. So next. So the budget to budget, and again, this is budget to budget. So what I budgeted last year compared to what I'm budgeting this year, the largest expenditures are salaries, $2.4 million, health insurance, like I said, $807,000, teacher retirement, 248. Business contractual services, that's $181,000. And here is because we added an SRO after we had the budget. So the board came back to me and said, do you think that you can find money for the SRO? And I said, yes, but it was never in the budget. Same story for the superintendent contractual services. The board came back and said, can you find money for strategic planning after the fact? And we said, yes, we find the money. So I added in the contractual expenditure for the superintendent $103,000 for strategic planning. Workers' comp, like I said, goes down $78,000, and debt goes down close to $2.1 million. And this is an important number that we had a discussion in Finance Committee that probably the members will want to discuss after I finish my presentation. So if we go to the next one, by law, I need to present the budget in three parts: administrative, program, and capital. This is how it is. The administrative is an increase of 7.7%, but obviously most of the increase is between the increase of the SRO and the strategic planning. The program is an increase of close to 5%. The capital is a decrease of 17.6%, and that's mainly because of the $2 million of debt that are coming off. So for our preliminary budget, I have a lower end of 88.1 million and a higher end of 88.5 compared to 86.6 of last year. So that's an increase of between 1.72 and 2.15 compared to last year. That will bring us a preliminary tax levy of between 51.1 and 51.5 compared to 50,000, or an increase of between 2.3 and 3%. Next, please. Here, we can see the trend, the proposed budget. Like I said, the non-property tax revenues are close to $37 million. The proposed budget is 88.4, which is the higher end. I prefer to give me some room to come down rather than to have to go up. $51 million in proposed tax levy. Obviously, the problem and the reason why we had a meeting with Senator Peter Hartman is because our tax cap will be reduced by 20%. So as it is, we are over the tax cap. And if we're over the tax cap and they don't change the legislature, we will have to have 66% of passing votes. So that's a discussion that we need to have. I hope that the community understands that a proposed tax levy of 3% is fiscally responsible, given the fact that we lost $20 million in pilot payments. Well, it will depend on the community. And the projections basically show the same. The projections show next year a proposed tax levy of 3.2 and the following year of 3.8, but with a tax cap way below that. So the problem is that every year between now and 2030, 31, if they don't change the law for us, we will have to go for the 66% override, which is very scary. The next one is on the lower side, that it's basically the same as the other one, but with the numbers of the lower side. But it shows the same problem even on the lower side. We will have our projections to be 66% of more on override because the way the tax cap formula is calculated. Thank you. Any comments? I'm sure that the finance committee is going to have some comments. Any questions before maybe? If there's any questions like that, then the finance committee can start the discussion on the $2 million.
I had a follow-up question about your meeting with Senator Harkin. How did it go? What's the outcome? Are we expecting any movement on the tax cap issue or?
Joe, why don't you tell them a little bit? You know him better. You have a better feeling of what he said. Thank you.
He's going to, he said he'd get back to us in 2 weeks. He's going to schedule a meeting with the education folks. These are the same folks that he hooked us up with last year to receive the extra $1 million in aid. So he's talking to the education folks so they understand that this school district, as a function of a dwindling power plant or a dwindling pilot because of a power plant, is adversely affected by the tax cap, even though, as Enrique shared, we have made some very strategic short and long-term decisions that basically we've played by the rules in response to a situation that was out of our control in Dean Point closing. So they're going to make the argument to the education folks to see if the Department of Education, or at least the Office of School Finance, will go to the State Controller's office to see if we can get a carve out. That can happen one or two ways. State Controller can change the property tax cap law, which probably won't happen, or the legislation, Pete Harkin could write legislation as a carve out for the budget deliberations that would restore some aid or lower our tax cap or some combination of both. I had a conversation on Friday with Dana Levenberg. Dana Levenberg is the recently elected state assemblywoman. We had the same talk. She's going to speak with Pete Harkin and see if they can join forces, which I don't see why they wouldn't. I'm in the process of setting up a phone call for Enrique and I to speak with the New York State Superintendent's Council. We did that before, and we also, I believe we met with the School Boards Association and some other groups. So we want to make sure that we have advocacy from different angles. But we expect, we met with Pete, last week? So another week, he said 2 weeks.
Okay, so hopefully it'll be, I'm just worried about timing. Obviously the budget calendar doesn't stop, but we're hopeful.
Sure.
Okay.
The good news is that in the last 2 budget votes, we were over the 66%. So, you know, yes, it's if we don't have any other recourse, it will be please vote and hoping that the community will understand that 3% compared to last year, that was a lot more than 3% the tax levy. They would say, you know, this can really affect our educational system.
Thank you.
I just have a general comment. I don't know if it's too big picture, but I would love for our board to, and I think Jen was on with me and Allie and Corey, when we had Town of Portland come, is there a way that we can try to push forward for more income? Like, well, I don't know of what our efforts are, you know, up until this point, but I think it would be great to meet with them again and really ask for their help in developing out this corner of town. There's lots of plans all over the town of Portland, just not in the Hendrick-Hudson School District. And I would love to see income come to help us with some of this. So, you know, I don't know if this is a committee or a separate discussion about amongst leadership or what we can do, but I would really love to try to work with the town to advocate for this corner of town of Portland.
They've come and presented last couple of years with their business development consultant. he had said that they, trying to get some new business in our school district. Most of it is through not-for-profit or town development. We talked a lot about different development outside of our school district, but we can reach back out to to their planner. He's a part-time person, and he can either provide a report to us or do a presentation. We know we're going to be busy this winter in budget presentations, but maybe there's a executive summary he could send us that what their plans are, at least what's on the burner.
Yeah, I remember they had
Can I add a,
plans, but nothing for.
Yeah, and I think the Montrose Matters group was working really hard too.
and I think there's a pretty important piece of this puzzle that is trying to find its way in for completion, and that is gonna be an IMA with the town of, I pulled an education and used acronyms and didn't know what it meant, right? So, which is like an intermunicipal agreement, and I believe it is it's not solidified yet, but I believe that the Village of Buchanan and the town of Cortland are working to do a cooperative effort utilizing some of the sewer treatment plant access that is currently owned and housed by Buchanan, and sharing that in a corridor in Montrose and potentially a corridor in Verplank. And the reason that is important for this conversation is that will, if it goes through, allow those areas to have a development that would allow for greater utilization of the space compared to what it would be available if they were to be on septic.
Mhm.
And that would increase the likelihood of some properties maybe being redeveloped, and that would be a benefit, I think, both to the town and to the school district. So I don't know where they are. I know that it is a conversation that is active, and that will help this cause tremendously.
We'll definitely into this. Anybody have any questions or comments on the?
I do.
Can you do the finance? The 2 million?
The 2 million?
Yes.
And I have a question too on the presentation.
So we just wanted to make sure that it was clear, right? So we're seeing
Slide
page 16. Yeah. So the debt savings that we're seeing next year, the $2 million, is essentially 4%, right? In a tax levy that we're basically not seeing because we're losing or gaining debt, I guess. So it's important that we're, transparent, because ideally we would like to turn that into another capital project. That's the goal, to keep upgrading. There's facilities work that need to be done within the schools, HVAC, plumbing. But anyways, more so, it's not really savings. So we really want to try to find true savings of that to get us down to where we want to be at this tax cap. We want to keep it there. But so we want to be able to put that $2 million forward for a capital project, and also have $2 million in savings to maintain the tax cap. So it's an effort we've been working on. We have some ideas. But I think we just wanted to be forthcoming, make sure everyone understood where the tax levy really is.
So basically what Jen is saying is that our budget will increase $1.8 million from last year to this year, but really it's increasing $3.8 million if we don't take into account the $2 million savings from debt. So the question is, should we use that money for operating budget, or like Jen said, to fix our facilities? It's a discussion that the board has to do, because if the board decides to do a capital bond and make it neutral, these are the $2 million a year that will make it neutral. If we already use them for operating budget, they are gone. So
if you save 2 million this year, you don't get to add it back next year, right? Now your new baseline is today minus 2, right?
Yeah.
So, if it's 3.8 million in total, then we're talking about a 7% tax levy? 7 to 8%?
No. What? If you decide to keep the $2 million for future capital projects, then definitely, because you need to add,
4%, right?
7%. That would have been a 7%. So we are 2.1 or whatever number we are, I'm sorry, let me see. A 2.1 because we reduce 4%, 4 to 5%.
But if we use this for something else, then we're talking about a 6%.
Right,
That's
so
what I'm saying.
the finance committee has been talking about, well, how can we be more efficient?
Right.
Where can we look to save money?
To save $2 million, that's a lot of money.
It's all,
Yeah,
well, I
yeah,
mean,
we thought we were going to have the Princeton plan, didn't work out.
exactly,
There's
that
your
was
2
the
million.
point of the Princeton plan.
We were trying to save the money, and it didn't work out. I'm admitting that.
Yeah,
Right?
and
How
Where,
many times do you want me to say it?
why do we need another $100,000 for the strategic plan?
I was gonna ask about the strategic plan also, because I don't think this budget doesn't take into consideration all the possibility, like, we don't have a line item in here that says strategic plan dreams.
No,
Like-
if you wait for the next presentation, it's a lot clearer.
Okay, I'm very patient, I can wait.
Thank you.
For my question too, for the next presentation, or we?
Yes. But, so, remember, this is our first budget presentation, but I think it's going to be very important to the board to make some decisions pretty soon about those $2 million. Maybe you don't want the $2 million cut, but you want some other amount. Because if you get back to us in March and say, I want $2 million, we only have a week or 2 weeks to find them, and we're just going to have to cut, the more time we have, the more we can think where can we cut without having.
We also have to consider that we have this BCS that we have, the building condition survey, and there are things within that we really have to fix, right? So just total transparency, we don't know what those are yet. We just know it's coming. So that may be part of that discussion, right? I mean, we may have.
What's the timeline on that? When are we gonna get a report out?
It was we were gonna do it at the end when we did our facilities.
But it is, I mean, we will let you know. It's coming, right? I mean, wanna just give it now, but that way we don't.
Yeah, I mean, we met last week with the architect and they gave us like a preliminary overview of where they thought they would have their targeted projects. I mean, a lot of them were just envelope, right? Site work, roofing, HVAC, I would say the big architectural feature was really a media. That was kind of a fairly common theme throughout all the schools, was upgraded library areas that would really all children would be able to access, which was really great. And there were some bathroom upgrades. A lot of them, we would make decisions based on Princeton, but a lot of them were, it didn't matter. We needed some gang bathrooms, whether we were going to stay at Princeton or go K-5, which was good and bad, because it helps us. It's things that we need to do anyways. And so a lot of them didn't necessarily have to do with Princeton, but so that'll be coming out soon and more detailed, and we'll present it with the architect probably.
And some of it's gonna be I guess what we're asking, I think Ally was like, what's the timeline?
Right.
So like if we have this $2 million, we have to decide, Enrique needs to know sooner than later. The finance committee has to discuss it, but we need to identify those items.
So I think tentatively,
There's
2 options, would be November of this year or May of next year. It would, either vote would probably not necessarily change a in-field start date.
Right.
Which would basically be the following summer. But so, 25, so mind you, this summer is gonna be the BB cafeteria. That has, we got $1 million, we have budgeted, that is out
You
for our.
approved it today.
Right,
Yeah.
that is out, and we're gonna get bids back, and that's gonna move forward. The facilities would like to see something next summer to kind of keep this positive momentum going of upgrades to our facilities. It doesn't need to be $20 million or $5 million. We haven't actually carved it out, really put it on paper. But it's just how do we get, the next steps. But most likely, a bigger one would be the end of this year, early next year, and we would have, once we got the report, we would bring it to the board for discussion.
So can we use some of this money to do the more immediate need?
It's $2 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Without going to vote and.
Well, you will
You
vote.
still have to vote, right?
There's two reasons we want to vote. Number
The
one, because
the
if you don't
community-
vote,
the
you don't
community.
get stated.
Okay, got it.
And number
Which
two,
is big.
you vote if
It's bigger than it used to be
you
too.
put it in the budget and you put it in the brochure and you announce it and you say, these $2 million are going for this capital project, and the budget passes, is equal as if you had your own separate capital proposition.
Understood.
So that's why I'm saying, when we talk about cutting $2 million, it's cutting $2 million from the operating budget, but keeping $2 million for a capital project in the same budget. So the budget won't change, it's just where we allocate the $2 million.
And Enrique, can you share, please, if we use the 2 million and line item the details so that it is approved from the community versus spent out of just the budget, can you share what the state aid makes that equal to? Is that equal to like $2.8 million? Right, because we get state aid.
Yeah. So this year, our state aid ratio for capital projects is 15%.
What, 5-0?
No, 15, this year.
5.
1.5. Next year, it goes up to 32%. The following year, it should go even more, because remember, there's a 3-year lag in the wealth ratio calculation. So this 32% is only taking into account one of the 2 reactors that went off. Next year, it's going to take the other one. So the second time is not as high as the first one, but I assume that next year we're going to be up to 40 to 45% in that neighborhood.
So
So
the
spending-
question is,
Go ahead.
whatever we can defer a year, that
That's
isn't
why-
immediate, will get us a lot more money.
That's why we haven't done the long-term bond on the $18.5 million. We're only paying interest, because then this year, I'm only getting 15%, but only on the interest. Next year, when I get 32%, then I can say, okay, next year, I'll start paying capital, because now my interest and capital will be at 32% state aid.
That's great.
Yes,
And so with state aid, we have $2 million. That means that at 32%, we could spend 3 million, get $1 million in aid, and so we can do a $3 million project that will cost $2 million. Am I understanding the way this works right?
yes, exactly. The way we look at it is, I do a 20-year bond. So my yearly payments can be of $3 million, but the community will only pay 2.1. So that's why. So then I say, okay, the present value of 18 years of payments of $3 million is $40 million. That's the number that we can go for the BCS. That's how it works.
Great, thank you.